and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Nice.
Supernatural, metaphysical, paranormal. You know, all those things you've been wondering about? Are you ready to go deeper into the realms of the unknown? I hope you've got your walking shoes on, because life is an adventure, and this is the journey. Come on, let's go. Hello and welcome to the show, everyone. This is the Journey Radio Show, and hey, we're the She Squatchers. I'm Jen Cruz, your host, and I've got my trusty teammates on the line. I've got Tammy Tricle.
Hi, everybody.
Jenna Grover. And she's on mute.
I can't.
She can't hear her. She's talking and making mad faces. Can't hear you. Can't hear you. Well, she's here. I promise. Now I can hear you.
Hey, everybody. It's Jenna. Sorry.
And we have a super special guest for you tonight. We've got Russ Victorian joining us from Minnesota.
Hey, how you doing tonight?
Hey, good,
Hey,
Russ. How
Russ.
are you?
Excellent. Beautiful night.
I'm so glad you could join us tonight. You come highly recommended.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate whoever did all the recommending.
All right. Good deal. Good deal. So I understand that you are into paranormal investigations, all things supernatural and weird and Bigfoot. These are like my favorite things.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick little format of how we work. The organization is called Search for Spirits. That's kind of our organization name. And underneath that, we have 3 sub-organizations. So it's Search for Spirits again. That's the paranormal investigation and healing team. And we have the Search for Sasquatch team. And we also have a Search for Heaven team. So we have 3 sub-teams underneath the organization.
What does the Search for Heaven team do?
We do a lot of online type advising to people with generally supernatural Christian type issues. Perhaps they're in some type of spiritual battle, so to speak. And, we just answer a lot of questions and help with guidance and stuff.
That is awesome because a lot of times Christians have a different idea about what they're experiencing that maybe what really is happening. And there's so many questions and there's so many people that don't know where to turn. So I think you guys are doing awesome.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I mean, it really all kind of goes together. I mean, it fits really nicely.
Yes. So tell me how you got interested in this. Like what grabbed your attention first?
Well, I think it was dating back to when I was probably about 5. I heard something outside one time and I was a little tyke. I jumped off my little bunk bed there, ran to the window at dusk. It was at night. I was supposed to be in bed sleeping, but I had heard something. I looked out the window and I thought I saw like a guy on top of the neighbor's roof, but I knew at that time of night there wouldn't be somebody out on the neighbor's roof. And it just was an accumulation of different little things like that. Not a lot, but little things that happen. I started getting dreams, which I couldn't identify, but I kept communicating with spirits in dreams. And that has continued on all the way to, as of last night, really. I mean, it's grown throughout my life and become a very active part of my processes. All that communicating with spirits.
What was on your neighbor's roof then?
I would never even know. I was 5 years old at the time. Like I say, I didn't really put the pieces together till I was much older, So things that happened when I was younger, and I just thought these were weird dreams or weird things that happened. I didn't really put a title or a definition, or I just let it go behind me like a lot of people do.
So were your dreams premonitions? Were they just spiritual conversations, or were they just conversations with maybe something that you had never seen?
Yeah,
Aliens?
it was quite a variety of stuff. Like I say, one of the big things that I've noticed a lot is the communication usually consists of a couple of things. And one of the things that they do often, to me anyway, this is just my experience, they show me the time of death, you know. And going back to one of my very earliest ones, it was a young native boy, and it was going to be his first battle. And his mother had made him a very nice kind of a protective thing out of buffalo hide to wear on his head. And him and his group were in this wood line, and another tribe came in on horses, and they attacked them. And unfortunately, the young fella got killed in the skirmish. And I mean, that's my assumption, because that's been the trend where I see the point of death a lot of times. Here's what happened to me. This is why I'm dead, or.
Do you ever feel, do you ever get dreams about deaths now that are currently happening, or is it more with the past spirit?
No, if I go on an investigation, it's not unusual for me to have a vision of sort or a dream a night or two before that gives me some details as to how at least one of the spirits had been deceased for whatever reason. And sometimes they are more excited about showing you something that was very important to them in their life. I had a fellow one time come to me the night before the investigation, and he shows me his place of work, and he showed me where his office was, and it was very organized shop. He was a shop guy, and he showed me, he introduced me to his family. He showed me that he worked at an egg factory, and he just gave me all these details. And I woke up and I was just amazed by the quantity of details. So I called the client up who I was going to go to that night. And I said, do you know anything about an egg factory or anything with eggs? I had no idea. I'm trying to piece things together. And she says, well, why do you ask? I said, a guy came to me in a dream last night, and he worked at this egg factory. So, well, she says, as a matter of fact, she says, our town, the primary businesses in our town for many, many years was an egg factory. It just closed down like 7 years ago. And she said it was everybody in town worked at the place. And I had no idea, So that was one of those validation points that, helped me become more aware of what these dreams were feeding me.
Mm-hmm.
And more
Did you ever-
confident in sharing that. Yeah. I like that. Go ahead, Jenna. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to ask if you ever wrote these things down and were able to almost prove it to someone else so you could prove it to yourself. Did you ever do that when you started, when you were little?
Well, I off and on, I journaled. Probably about 10 years ago, I started with a very healthy, considerable amount of journaling. So now I almost do it almost daily. And all these details get journaled into this journal. And it's quite common, of course, that I'll jump back or I'll do a word search to try to find something that happened, so I can take maybe 2 and 2 and make 4 out of something that happened today.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I would have done that.
You can start tomorrow.
Yeah, you're right. I could start tonight.
You can start tonight.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit more about how you grew up and how you used the gifts for your benefit or other people's benefit.
Well, like I say, I grew up with this on the back burner, so to speak. All of this was on the back burner. I would probably say that the search for Sasquatch, although it wasn't a team at the time, was probably an interest that came to me first, because we're talking back in probably the early 90s, when I was sitting around the bonfire with a neighbor of mine way up in the Northwoods, and I got a little shack up there, and we got to having a conversation about Bigfoot. And he told me, he didn't tell a lot of people, but we were sitting there over a can of beer, and he says, I spent a lot of nights. I can't sleep. I drive up and down these roads and looking for Bigfoot or other unusual things. He says there's another character. I run into him all the time. He's doing the same thing. Can't sleep, driving these back roads. And he said that guy actually saw Bigfoot once. And he told me exactly where it was, and we had a nice conversation. And that was kind of the foundation of me thinking about the Sasquatch species, so to speak. And that, I mean, and that's opened up so many different windows. And yeah, it just went on and on from there. Now, the actual things that I involved with the supernatural, like paranormal, things like that, that didn't come on till about 13 years ago when I was on a trip. I was out in Kentucky. I was doing some training out there. And I tell you what, I had a little free time. So I'd go out at night and visit some people. And I went up to the local establishment. And I had heard that the Jesse James gang used to get a hotel room there. And I said, well, that's very interesting to me. I want to go check that out. And I went there, and not long before I got there, they had this fire, and it had burned up the room where Jesse James and his brother Frank used to hang out. I was sorely disappointed. And so I went downstairs, and I'm talking with two very wonderful ladies there that were working there, and they commenced to telling me all these ghost stories. And I had watched a time or two on TV, that Ghost Hunter show, I think it was called back then, one of the first ones that I had actually seen. And you know, all of a sudden it just things kind of fell into my mind, like, this makes sense to me. So I went upstairs with nothing but a camera, and I walked around that hotel. They gave me wide open doors. I said, take your time. And I went, you know, kind of around the rooms and up and down the halls with my camera, and I took some pictures. And that was essentially my very first paranormal investigation. And the next day I went up to Best Buy or whatever it was, some store, and I bought me an audio recorder. And boy, it was full steam ahead from there.
So did you catch anything on that first time?
No, not really.
Oh.
But I had a hell of a good time. Oop, careful.
Dang straight. It was better than... Oops, sorry, I just about...
Oh, look at
Hannah!
I'm about ready to break every rule.
I just about sang. Sorry.
And I even knew what song it was, so you did.
I know you did.
Oh, but it was, yeah. So, you know, I had a great time out in Kentucky. I can't tell you enough. You know, I went out to Waverly, and I went to all kinds of places. And while I was out there, and did some really cool, you know, not overnighters, but I had some really great opportunities to check out some cool spots out there.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's where it started.
Yay.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
So now the person that you were talking about, was he the one that was supposed to be here with you?
Well, I have
tonight?
a lead investigator. His name is Mark. And we served in the military together. We're both retirees. And he works in town here. And a friend of ours, a mutual friend, just said, hey, I heard you guys kind of got stuff in common. I don't know if you realize it. And I said, oh, I didn't know. And then we coincidentally ran into each other at the local county fair one time. And I said, hey, let's chat. And we got together about a week later. We found that we had a lot of the same thought processes. And we thought we could make something work out of this. And so it was about 4 years in or so when he joined the team. Before that, I wasn't doing it by myself, so to speak, although I did some investigations on my own. But I had random people, just friends I knew. I'd drag them along to some place or something, you know.
They loved it. It doesn't
Oh,
matter
they
what they
did.
told you. They loved it.
So, yeah, that's kind of how it went.
So when do you think was the deciding, I mean, was it when after you talked to him that you decided, I'm doing this, I'm going to go gung-ho into this? Did you buy a bunch of equipment? How far did you go with the want?
Well, I had purchased a good variety of the equipment prior. Like I say, I had already been investigating for at least 4 years prior to him coming on board.
Oh, okay.
And but I think one of the key movements that occurred when we got together is the fact that we wanted to be at a slightly different, not
Angle.
level, but we
Angle?
wanted to help people. we wanted to help people. We just didn't want to be walking into a house and just checking it out. We wanted to know the whole angle where you could help that family, help that deceased person, perhaps. Matter of fact, it was kind of our motto, or that we said for years, we are here to help both the living and the dead. And that's really where the adventure kind of started, with the whole healing part. And that's when we added the healing onto our name. So it was Search for Spirits, Paranormal Investigations, and Healing. Healing being the process of helping that family and that deceased soul find some type of resolution and reconciliation.
That is awesome. It's so important that people do get healing from this, because they don't understand what's going on.
I mean, really, in a lot of cases, they have no idea the origination of a haunting, or what is the resolution of that haunting. And we walk them through all the steps. And I still have some clients, maybe I had them 2 years ago, and I still visit with them every now and again, because they have to grow, and some people grow at different, some people get it right away, and some people take a couple years to grow and understand the processes of finding resolution in your life, as a spirit of the Lord, so to speak. That's a process of understanding that. And a lot of times it ends up being something related to that that's going to help them advance past where they're stuck. They're stuck for a reason, or the haunting is there for a reason. There's always an answer to it.
That's great. So tell us about, how often do you go out? To research?
Yeah, well, when it comes to the paranormal, we went probably about 3 years ago, where we were doing 45 to 50 home and business investigations a year. And so we were traveling at least every other weekend, if not in many cases every weekend. So 40 to 50 cases is a lot.
That is a lot
for a year.
Oh my gosh.
We did that for a couple of years. Now, the last 2 years, we're down in that 28, 29 range, right in there per year. But we've increased the number of search for Sasquatch type events and research outings that we've been doing, to kind of balance that out a little bit. And so that area has kind of grown a little bit, but you just don't know. Things kind of flow up and down with, certain times you get real busy, and then certain times you're kind of quiet. I don't really have the answers for why that is, but it is that way.
Well, hopefully it's not too expensive for your travel. Hopefully people do help you pay for that travel. And I'm excited to hear more about maybe some scary stories.
I've got
look
plenty.
at that smile. So what's your ultimate scary story do you have a scary side on the Bigfoot end of it?
Well, I have a little on both sides. I would think scared isn't really a word that comes in my definition of, shock. Sometimes you're in shock and awe of something you might see or experience. One of my favorite stories is about the time that Mark and I were out on a trail, and we were probably about a mile out in the woods. We're just on foot. We had parked the vehicle because it got just too thin of a trail to take the vehicle on. And we're walking along, and we hear this tree creaking. And it wasn't a windy night. There was no trees blowing in the wind or anything, but one tree was kind of creaking, kind of knocking. And so Mark walked up to it, and he took out his pocket knife, and he was kind of trying to imitate the knock a little bit. And he got to the first tree. He said, well, this ain't the right tree. He walked to the next tree right behind it, and he just was about to knock on there with his little pocket knife, and something ran from behind the tree. Now, whatever was running there, by the sound and the weight of its footsteps, went 500 plus pounds. It ran at a 45-degree angle, about 35 yards out from me, at a 45 right past in front of me. Heavy footsteps, just boom, 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 boom. And it was at dusk. There was just enough light. There was still enough light to see, but there was nothing there. There
No,
was
no
nothing
prints.
to be seen. Nothing. I mean, it was right in my face. How can you not see something? And I really think that was one of our first big experiences that really made us started thinking twice about what are we exactly all running into while we're out in the woods.
Hmm. It's so interesting that we can be looking and see a wisp of a tree branch come back and fly back, but we see nothing that
Yeah.
made it, made it move. So is
It's
that
just
kind of that's
constant. When you start really looking for it, it's happening all the time.
There is so much. I mean, have you ever seen anything else? Any other cryptids?
We've seen a few. I mean, we were out, we had a call, I think it was out by New London there somewhere. You're probably familiar with that haunted road out there. And I think we were out visiting that place. After we went, we did a little video on it. And Timberlake Road is, you probably heard of it, but people would ask us, hey, will you come out there with us? Because they knew we had been out there a time or two. So we brought a few teams out there just showing them around. And we were on the way home one night, probably 2, 3 in the morning. And we weren't far out of that area. And this looked like kind of a cat, like a big cat, so to speak, but its hair was all matted down like with mud, like some kind of it just looked like a creature. It kind of had the shape of like a mountain lion, but it was not. It had a different look to it. It was a dark color and had this muddy kind of, it was like a mountain lion had just been hiding in the mud all day long and now was out and running around at night. Maybe that's what happens. I don't know. Maybe they hide so well, but it was just a weird, strange looking thing. But
was it a solid creature or was it a shadow panther?
It was solid. I mean, it was in the headlights of the vehicle. It looked solid to us. I mean, it didn't look like it was see-through or anything. And so that was pretty interesting. And like I said, we've had several close encounters with what we believe to be what I oftentimes call a Sasquatch or Sasquatch species, Bigfoot. And I have a few videos out where, we've been probably within 50, 60 yards and you can hear them. And we've recorded some of the sounds and this and that. But I can't say I've actually seen one. I had one time and I knew it was right there. And I was sitting there and they, I hate to say stuff like this. Sometimes people think it's kind of odd, but I do a lot of mind communications. And the Bigfoot likes to do that too in a lot of cases. They communicate that way. And one time I said, why don't you just show yourself? Just for a second, do something. I said, you're right here. You're trying to communicate with me. Why can you not just show yourself to me? And he finally agreed. He said, yes. And out of the side of my eye, there was a big old birch tree right there. And he walked past the birch tree. I was in a deer stand, probably about 7 feet high or more. And he walked by that, and I could tell that he was probably about 8 feet tall at least. But all he would show is the shadow. He wouldn't show me the full, figure of himself. He just went by there, plain as day, just walked by that slowly, and he showed me his shadow so I could see about how tall he was and whatnot. And that's as close as I've ever been. I've never, and I know Jen's seen him, seen Bigfoot and stuff. I don't know about you guys, but I've never actually walked up on one or just seen it standing there.
We've all seen Bigfoot in the daytime.
Yep.
But I want a closer interaction.
Yeah.
She wants to have tea.
I would like to have tea, darling.
Tea is all
I
right.
love tea.
Yeah.
I want to go in the portal with them, so.
Oh, well,
Tammy, I'm actually ready to go too.
I was just watching a show like that on TV right before I came to the show.
Nice.
Which
what
one?
were you watching?
It was I think it's called WF. Have you ever watched that on YouTube? WF, and it's a guy. I think it's supposed to stand for what the Farmington, but it's just WF, and he just got these really crazy shows on there about stuff like this, and he was talking about how a guy had disappeared into some portal that he had created, so to speak.
What do you think about portals?
Well, I mean, I know they exist. I mean, I know that. I have a good, strong feeling for that, and I've helped people close them. But I'm not as wise into the sensitivities of them. Some people claim that they're just kind of all over, and maybe they are. I don't know. But when people tell me they're there, the reason I know they're there is when I close them, then they're not in use anymore. And that's what I know about them. And that's all I know. And but I do know you have to be very, very careful with that. And like I say, sometimes I say things that's really maybe hard to believe, but I was up north one time in one of those locations. We were on a Bigfoot expedition, so to speak. We were out in the woods doing things, had a lot of experiences with paranormal because we run into deceased souls almost every time we go looking for Bigfoot. They're all over the Northwoods. And I just had the urge I just felt that they were stuck in a little portal out there out in the woods. So I closed this portal out in the middle of the woods there where we were at. It was like 1.5 miles out. And I came home and I kept having these visions of like 4 Sasquatch, and they were stuck behind a wall. And the message was, dude, you just closed us out.
Oh no.
So I had to go and release that portal, and as soon as I did, then they never did anything. That was the last time I heard from them.
So how and I'm just curious, how are you closing this portal? I think we've got a few minutes.
I mean, just kind of like I do everything. I do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. That's my source of energy. That's how I work. So that's the
so you're just
easiest way to say it.
You're asking Christ to help you close the portal and open it for the best, for the good of all, or?
Well, I've learned, I didn't have like specific training on this. I don't even know if this training exists anywhere per se, other than us having conversations. But I learned through trial and error that I have to be very specific when I'm communicating, because what comes out of your mouth can affect a lot more than what you think. Because we were at one investigation one time, and I had shut a portal down in their house, and one of the spirits was outside yet, and he was very upset that he got stuck outside. So I had to reopen, get him in, cross him, and then close it back up again, because I didn't want to leave that open, because there was a lot of energies using it, and it was going to be a constant harassment for this poor family in their house if we didn't close that down.
So, and this is just out of my curiosity. So are you speaking to the spirits through visual or
all
hearing?
of the above? Probably.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes it's visions, sometimes it's just words, sometimes it's I pull it up. During our investigations, whether it's search for Sasquatch or search for spirits, we're running audio all the time, and so I'm listening back, and I get tons of great feedback in EVPs on things, and it really helps me define what I'm running into, and how to handle certain situations.
Nice. And these EVPs are kind of backing up everything you're finding, right?
Right.
All right. With that, we should go to our commercial break. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back. And we should be a break. All right. Remember, everything that happens during the break, everything that happens still ends up on YouTube. So.
Absolutely. So
still recording.
Oh my gosh, it is so hot in here.
Where you guys? You're all at different places, though, right? Or
I'm in Moorhead.
I'm in
Okay.
Fargo, North Dakota.
I'm in
Tammy's
Virginia
pretty cool.
Beach.
she's so lucky.
Where you at?
Virginia Beach.
Oh, you're the one that should be hot, right? Isn't it hot out there? Probably
And it
not.
was pretty nice today. It was 67.
Oh,
Ugh.
And then tomorrow's gonna be 70, and then on Friday we're talking 73 degrees.
oh my God.
That's awesome. I have to get to Texas. Dang it. I forgot we were online again.
I have a heater vent right underneath the love seat that I'm sitting on. So when it comes on, it just heats me all up in here. And I'm like, too
Yeah,
hot.
my office is generally, I keep it at a certain temperature in the 60s, but I have a heated floor mat right underneath me. And I just if I get cold, I stick my socks on top of that heated mat. And that's all it takes. So I can keep it a little bit cooler in here overall. Yeah, there you go.
I put it on my back just when I'm hot,
Right.
which is all the time. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. It just worked.
We were playing in the snow yesterday.
I think I saw something where you guys were doing something. You were kind of playing
Pictures.
around, dancing in the snow.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's what
Yeah.
we do. It's
Jenna
how
was
we-
running and Jenna was falling.
I fell and Jen got it on tape. And you'll be seeing it
Did
soon,
you
I'm
put it on
sure,
YouTube?
because
No, Jenna was
Not-
supposed to edit it and send it to me so I could put it on YouTube, and she didn't do it.
but
I
you
don't
know
know why.
why? Because Jason will be sharing it or putting it in.
We still need to put it up as a short, just you falling down. And welcome back to the show,
Just-
everyone. This is the Journey Radio Show, and hey, we're the She Squatchers. Won't you check us out online at shesquatchers.com? And then, you know what else? We're on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all under She Squatchers Official. So please come like and follow us there. Hit subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you'll find out all the good stuff that's going on with us. So back to the show. We've got Russ Victorian with us from Minnesota. He's with Search for Spirits, Search for Sasquatch, and Search for Heaven.
Yep.
Very interesting. So back to our conversation with Russ. Hi, Russ.
Hi.
Hi.
So, yeah, well, you'll have to help me. Where did we leave off?
That's a good
I-
question.
What was the last question?
You
Otherwise,
know, I think we were talking about how awesome you think we are.
that's right. So I've known you guys for quite a few years. I've seen you up at Reamer at the Bigfoot events and stuff. And I mean, at least a few of you I've seen here and there over the years. And so I've been familiar with your team. But I have to admit, this is when you invited me to the show, it was for some reason the first time I was introduced to the show. So I'll have to keep an eye out for it now.
There you
Well,
go.
yay. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, you're going to have to watch yourself on the show and be like,
Yes.
wow, I'm amazing.
And look at that.
Look at me. Look at me.
Jenna says that all the time. So while we were
Yeah.
on break, I'm just going to
Only
tell
for
people.
joking.
Jenna and I
Look
were out.
at it.
Look at it. Jenna and I were out in the snow yesterday filming some stuff and taking pictures, and she fell down. Now it was so funny that I laughed so hard, and I was on like this little incline of a hill that I kept losing my balance and almost falling. And every
Mhm.
time I'd grab my balance and I'd re-steady myself, and then I'd almost fall again because I was laughing so hard. And it was like 3 times I almost fell just because Jenna fell.
She
And
was so jealous that I fell. She kept trying to fall. It was gross, Jen.
I'm
I'm
normally
I
I'm
want to
nor-
fall.
I'm normally the one who falls down, and then Tammy laughs so hard that
Yes, I
nobody.
do.
Yeah, she does.
But she wasn't there to laugh at me, so I was a little,
That's why you need to share the video so I can laugh at you.
Oh, Tammy, you're always thinking of me. No, we will share the video, but I thought Jason was going to use it, so I thought I want him to enjoy the success of me falling down.
Mhm. It's
Well,
good
we
to
could
be
just,
humble.
we
we
need
could
it- we
just
need it-
make a
we need it
video and
short.
get Jen falling.
Yeah, that's true. We can have like the best of the best of Jen's falling. Oh, Jen's falls. Sounds great.
That sounds like a great vacation destination.
Jen's falls.
I don't get. Oh,
Nice
yeah.
cover, Jen. Nice cover.
Hey, I'm not as clumsy as I used to be. I'm getting better.
Little bit, Jen.
Yeah.
Like a bullet. You just speed like a bullet.
Oh, you are nasty.
I can't help it.
That's a dig. That's a dig.
She's
That
digging
like,
on
No,
ya.
it's a fun thing. It's a fun thing. I keep forgetting we're not.
Oh.
So,
But yeah. So, well, I mean, I understand though that whole, when you're bouncing around through the North Woods or any woods anywhere, and I mean, sometimes you can have some pretty comical situations trying to get through the brush and get to some of these spots that are quite unusual.
have you ever had any brushes with like breaking a leg or slipping or falling or?
I can't say I've had anything that's been. One time we had a case in southern Minnesota, and it was at a house. We were doing a house call, and it's probably about 10:30 at night. We got the lights off because that's how we roll. That's how most of us roll. And in the upstairs, they didn't have the railing on the steps. And so I'm in another room, and a buddy of mine calls, and he says, "Hey, did you hear that?" And I come walking out of my room, walk right across that open area and I just dropped down about halfway down the stairs and kind of jammed my knee a little bit. That's probably about the worst thing that's ever happened to me. I haven't had much worse than that. I haven't broken anything, but I bumped my leg. I thought we were almost going to have to call it, but I just kind of kept rolling, and
you got over
by the time
it.
we left, I dealt with it later, but I mean, it'd have been a long drive down there. You're not just gonna call it quits, We drive all over. We're up in the Iron Range a lot. We're down in southern Minnesota, and we do a lot of traveling for all these cases, and
traveling's a lot of hard work. It is fun, but it's a lot of hard work.
It is. Yep.
How far do
you go? A lot
of
gas station hot dogs there, I tell you. Ain't good. Well, I don't know. Well, gas station food in general, so to speak.
Yeah, I love. Oh, sorry. Go on.
Oh, I was going to say, ask how far you normally go for an investigation.
We really don't have a real strong limit on how far we go. I mean, we've done a number of cases in Wisconsin, South Dakota, and just about anywhere in Minnesota. We do get a lot of cases that, in some cases, people don't want to travel as far, so we'll take some of those cases. Or sometimes they just don't want to deal with some of the cases can get a little ugly, and there's a lot of teams that don't want to deal with that. So we get, a lot of calls from other teams that say, "Hey, can you tackle this case? You guys want to take this one on?" Or be like, "Okay." So,
have you ever noticed like certain areas being more active than others, or states, or?
Not really, but we have noticed that it rolls in trends. It's probably a communication thing. Like we'll be down by a certain town and we'll hit a case. Next thing you know, it seems coincidentally we're down in that same area like 2-3 times in a row. And then we've tried to follow up on it. Hey, how did you hear about us? And surprisingly, it isn't like it was word of mouth from humans. So was it word of mouth of deceased souls communicating, say, "Hey, if you need some resolution, reconciliation, somehow you need to get a hold of this team and get this team down there."
Now that is good advertising. If you can get spirits to give your information out. Oh my gosh. I'm not kidding.
I mean, I think a lot of calls come to teams that way, based on what different teams have different specialties.
Yeah.
We're not better or worse than each other, but we have different uniqueness about us. And like we handle a lot of cases that are more the spiritual battleground type cases, and that seems to be. And we didn't hardly try that. Those are the cases that just kind of keep coming to us.
Okay.
And
it seems.
Same.
Have you?
I said same.
right?
Have you noticed that there's been more spiritual warfare kind of thing going on lately?
Well, I think in general the supernatural atmosphere of the universe, whether it be through a different plane or however it's coming at us, has picked up. I mean, even people that don't really associate much with paranormal, supernatural, those type of fields, are having experiences. And, one guy's like, hey, I've been out in the woods. I spent my whole life out in the woods, never experienced nothing. But the last 2 years, now I keep hearing footsteps out in the woods all the time, and stuff like that. He said, I'm hearing, I don't even understand it. So, and the way I, this kind of my sensitivity graph is, like say you're a musician and you have a machine in front of you that has all different tones in it, and you're adjusting the different tones of the music, equalizer you might call it or whatever. And I always seen sensitivity as that. I think sensitivity is in all of us, but it is all dependent on the types of trauma or experiences or different things you have going on or have had gone on in your life that push that thing up a little bit. And the more experiences and trauma, the higher that goes up at a level, the more sensitive you are. And but there's a lot more people that experience nothing that are beginning to experience things.
And that's good.
I mean, yeah, it helps everybody but unfortunately not everybody's prepared to know how to manage it. So we get a lot of calls from around the country on people just want to talk a little bit, and it's tough for them to get on Facebook or something. And unfortunately, there are a lot of good people out there, but a lot of meatheads too, and they give a lot of bad advice. And people have to be really careful with that. Some of your more professionals probably aren't sitting on Facebook trying to help you. They're busy doing professional, more professional stuff.
Now, do they call the heaven, the one for heaven, if they're having spiritual, right?
They all kind of come questions? Yeah, they come through the same lines. They don't really break out too much. They all kind of come through that search for spirit line. And since that's the kind of like the mother team, so the mother of the organization, that's where everything kind of comes through. And then I am the little guy that sits at the computer here in a small little office, and I just push it around, But it's not too bad. I'm not too busy.
Well, it just sounds so successful, and it sounds like you are helping a lot of people. I think that's great. So thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, we enjoy every case because every case we go out, we're learning something new, and we're meeting new people, helping more people, and yeah, we just enjoy it. Like I say, Mark and I had a plan in mind to take this team into the next in a direction that was going to be consistently trying to help people living and dead. And since me and him did that together, this team has really sprouted with business, people calling and different things, because a lot of people need that kind of help.
So before we run out of time, I would love to hear some of your Bigfoot stories and experiences.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think my favorite, well, you were up at Reamer this last year?
I was, yes.
Yep. The night we were up at Reamer, I have this travel van I travel in. It's got my bed in it and stuff like that. And so I could have parked in town. I'm like, maybe I'll park in town. And the guy said, you can park. He told me where I could park. And I'm like, no. This ain't how this is going to roll. We're going to go out in the woods. So I drove through the dark for about an hour and found a little hole out in the middle of the woods where I knew I was good and far away from everything. And I just parked my van and got my bedroll out so I could go to bed. But it was interesting. I was like, because of the fact that I have a lot of experiences with the paranormal as well in these locations. So like in this particular night, I rolled in and I said, okay, if there's any souls here, and I went through the process of facilitating a crossover, and I just put my intentions out there. I'm out here. I want the souls to find their reconciliation. I want to move forward with that tonight into potential communications with a Sasquatch type species out here. I laid my intentions out. I get my mindset on it. And so I go ahead and offer the crossover for the spirits. Things kind of quiet down after a little bit. But it changes. All of a sudden, I'm getting this real heavy heart type palpitations or whatever you call them. I was like, oh, it was so crazy. And I said, I don't know what's going on, but I don't know if I could take it. I was about ready to drive to town because I couldn't control the fact that my heart was beating so fast. I said, I have no idea what here right now, but we need to make some adjustments. Either you're too close or something's going on. And it didn't stop. It didn't stop. And finally, I just said, God, if whatever is here, if it has to be backed off soon, I'm really concerned, or I'm going to have to bail and leave this go. And as soon as I asked God, it was within about a minute. Boom, it was completely gone. Matter of fact, I went into this real relaxed mode and I fell asleep. And I woke up a little while later, not too long later, I kind of was up and down. And this case was really interesting because it has to do with that communication thing. And one of the first things they do, and I really know I'm in a strong Bigfoot area, is they put a little picture in my mind first. And they show me how many are in the group in their area. And so there was 8 of them in this group. But one of the 8 was down. He was like down on his knees, And I said, well, what's going on with that guy? What's going on with that Bigfoot? And they said, he's not well. He's injured. I said, well, what happened? It's not happening in this fluid of a conversation. Let me just say that, but it happens over a period of time. But in the end, one of the Sasquatch had been shot by a snowmobiler. That's what they told me. And somebody on a snowmobile saw him, stopped, and took a couple shots and actually hit him. And he was injured. And I said, well, gosh, what do you think a guy could do for something like that? I said, is it similar to humans? And I'm just thinking, I'm thinking out loud is all I'm really doing to myself. But as I think out loud to myself, they'll chime in. And I said, well, maybe, can I just say some prayers for you? And they were acceptable to that fact that I would pray for that one that was injured there. And then that night, twice I had these big orbs. They're probably about a foot around, and they come by the windows of the van while I was sitting out there. It was really a unique night. There's a much longer story, but I'm going to leave it at that because just due to time. But
well, that
was
an
fun
interesting
anyway.
Story. Yeah.
That's
We
one of
got
my
time
favorites.
for more.
That's one of my favorites. Hey, I got one that I always tell about paranormal. We had a time we were at a case. It was actually a local case. And we had gone through the entire process. And it's just, in a humbling way, it's not always perfect. Things don't work exactly as you always think they're gonna. No matter how smart you think you are, how practiced and experienced. We went through the whole process like we would at any case. And we got to the door, and I'm saying goodbye to the lady, and I'm sticking my shoes on. And there's a shelf right by the door, and it had like one of those little glasses, and it's got, like fake dirt in it with a little fake plant in it. And as I'm standing there squishing my shoes on, this little glass with this plant in it lifts up off the shelf and slams down right at my feet. And I open up the door to the garage, and I poke my head out. I said, team, we're not quite done here. Come back in. We obviously weren't done with that house. So something for whatever, but we've had interesting things where things get kind of tossed around a little bit, or probably one of the most exciting things to me is when something reappears that the family hasn't seen in a long time. And we've had that happen over and over now, where like one family was missing some things for a year and a half. And the minute we cleared that house, those items showed up, and that's I always kind of like those kind of cases where, if you talk about validation of what you did it help? The fact that, the cats always react to it a lot of times, or the pets always give a real clear indication that there's been adjustment in the energy in the house. Sometimes you can't always feel it yourself, and but by the other triggers in the house. So yeah, how about you, Tammy? You haven't asked me a single question yet.
That's because they never let me talk. No.
Oh my gosh.
Ah, she's right.
She's sitting back there thinking about Virginia Beach and the sand and toes
Thinking
in the
about
sand.
the ocean.
You know, you brought it up again. I can't wait. Okay, Tammy, I'm going to Texas very soon.
Okay.
She
Yeah.
did
And then
just
I'll
ask
send
me to
you
drive her
pictures.
there like tomorrow.
Did.
Oh,
I did.
Wow.
I'm ready to go now.
Now, do you guys do you find that when you're in other states that you pull in, it's not always the same types of energy. It's different types of things in different states.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
every place is
And
different.
countries. Yeah.
And
Yep.
countries.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
know
it's
the
very
biggest
unique.
difference. Hmm?
It's very unique, even just like I say, just say you're talking about Bigfoot. It's a unique situation when you're in one part of northern Minnesota and you head over to another one. And it's like you're dealing with a totally different species or something. It's just different by the way they act and communicate and all that different stuff. It's just
Oh,
very
yeah.
unique in those different changes. In some areas, it's all rock knocks. They don't even do wood knocks. Other areas, it's wood knocks or whoops or this. It's just different wherever you go. They each have their own little.
The
Are
same
you
with
thinking
people.
that has to do with, I was just going to say the people. Sorry, Tammy, I blocked you off from another
See? You see
question.
what I mean? They don't let me talk.
They don't.
You just
What
wait,
was your
Tammy.
question? I'm listening.
Look at Jen. I'm not talking at all. Yeah, we know. We see you sitting there.
Mhm. She is talking just on fingers.
So what's your question, Tammy? I'll listen this time.
No, I don't really have a question about that. I was just thinking on when you were talking about your experiences way back in the beginning when you were a child. That first one that you had, I had an experience when I was 4. So looking back now from your adult view at what happened, do you have an idea in your head of what you think that might have been when you saw that thing on the roof?
The thing on the roof always kind of was a stumper for me. And I had another one not long after. My dad was a painter. He was a big painter, and he painted for a lot of people, different things. But he loved to paint these big old ships with the big masts and stuff, the old ships.
Oh,
He
yeah.
loved to paint those. But they didn't sell a lot, so he kept them in a little den in our house in this little dark little spot. And every once in a while, as a kid, you're 6, 7, 8 years old, you're like, you want to investigate? And I'd get back there and I'd be digging around his pictures. And I took one of the pictures out with the ship. And I was walking, I was probably heading to where there was more light because the den was really a dark spot. And as I was walking, I heard what sounded like footsteps, like something had run across the deck of the ship. And then I heard a splash as if they had jumped into the ocean.
That's awesome.
Holding that picture.
That is
And that's
awesome.
one of my earliest ones too. Sometimes those are things you can't explain. It's just paranormal.
I get the vibes of vampire when you were telling me that story. My immediate thought was vampire. So
Well, yeah, he wasn't a dangerous looking fella. He actually at the time it was right around Christmas, and I, as a young lad, I kind of thought he was Santa Claus or something. I'll be honest. That's what in my mind, I had that in my mind.
well, that's one way to make the memory a good memory. I saw
Right.
Yeah. I didn't know anything else about, like I say, even looking back, I only foresee it as, it could have been an angel. It could have been all kinds of stuff, and I've seen an angel or two, and they never were like with wings on or anything. They looked like me and you, really. The ones that I've seen, that's how they showed themselves to me. They weren't, some people see them, they're 9 feet tall, wings, this and that. I just see them, they just communicate, and they're just like me. So.
I think there's a lot of things that look just like us that people aren't seeing unless your eyes are open.
Right.
When I would see angels, I would I would just see them as people, but then psychically I would see their wings, and how big their wings were how big of an angel they were.
Okay.
And I think everybody develops their own psychic vocabulary that means something to them. And so that might not necessarily come through to somebody else that way, but that's just how it came through to me, for me to understand it. And so when I saw like an
very
archangel.
important for people to understand that fact is the fact that Jen, Tammy, Jenna, Russ, and the other 100 people investigating in the state of Minnesota, we all have slightly different foundations. We all came from slightly different areas. We have different lifetime experiences. Tammy had one when she was young. I had one when I was young. We're all experiencing this stuff, different stuff. We're growing in different ways. Our sensitivities are growing like fingers through the, through the air. And just to acknowledge that, yes, you know what, Jen, you had an absolute, it's totally different than mine, but yours is really cool and it's unique. And we accept the fact that nobody knows for sure.
Well, and that's the other thing. Like when people see spirits, like when I see like psychic vision of a spirit, not necessarily that I'm seeing a spirit right there, right now that everybody else in the room is also seeing, but like when I psychically see spirits and I tell my clients I'm seeing, this person with very large ears. I'm literally seeing like Dumbo ears on this person. And I know they didn't look like that, but they're showing me Dumbo type ears so that I'll say they had big ears.
Yeah.
Because it would be rude if they just had kind of little big ears. I probably wouldn't say that. And so
Right.
they're like, oh, is this him? And I'm like, well, I don't know, because the way I saw it was like Dumbo ears. And just recently I had a client and I'm like, I'm seeing a woman with a very large bun right on the top of her head. And she's like, that's my grandma. So, they always show me something exaggerated so that I'll say that, the big ears, the big nose. And when I see a big nose, it's like wonk,
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, and that comes through differently to that psychic information comes through differently to different people. And so each person develops their own psychic vocabulary that's unique to them. And I think people need to understand that.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, so when you guys are seeing visions or you're getting psychic information, are you seeing it in different levels, like up top, down, sides, pictures and words at the same time? You're asking about the pictures and it's coming back, but they're in different areas. So I know that up here means it's top, bottom, side.
I think that's different for everybody. I don't get to choose how I receive information from spirit. Sometimes they will give me, like, I will see a word in front of my face. Sometimes I hear something. Sometimes I just know. Sometimes they give me trigger words. Sometimes they say words that I don't know what they are, so I will repeat them. Because when I do like medical readings, I won't say cancer. But if they say carcinoma, blah, 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 then it comes out of my mouth. So I think that everybody receives their information differently.
I just think it's so amazing. I'm stunned when it happens.
And we are at the end of the show, so we have to give them time to tell how people can reach him. So how can people reach you, Russ?
Well, I tell you what, the best way is just to hit up my Facebook site. I have the Search for Spirits. It's all one word. And I think you have it on the thing there. Like I say, it's Search for Spirits, all one word like that.
Okay, and the number 4.
The number 4. And you get to our Facebook site. Once you get on that site, all of the different adjoining YouTube pages, Facebook pages, the websites, all of that information is on that page. And that's the easiest way to really direct your way in to your specific interest. So.
Perfect. Well, thank you for coming on
the show.
And we're
dancing our way out the door.
We are dancing out the door. Thanks for coming on the show with us, Russ. Maybe we'll have you back another time.
Yes, I dance we got a lot more to talk about.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.